I am back with another video. And yes, this was such a bad joke, but it makes it easier for me to get into the video. This is actually my third attempt for this video because my first two ones were 10 minutes plus, and that's just too long for a 24-hour later video of the GT5. And the first thing that I want to quickly get out of the way, I admitted that I judged this device way too early, but I was never having a problem of admitting that I am wrong, because once I have a device in my hand, and I reset it, things start fresh. And then even after 10 minutes I noticed that this phone is way better than everyone wants to make you believe, because let's start off with the first thing, the design and build quality. It feels so much nicer in the hand than I ever would have expected. It feels very, very premium. Yes, as you can see here, you can look through it and there are a few sharp edges. And here, for example, we have a little bit of a gap and you will feel that. But this doesn't really make any impact on the normal in-hand use, because there you don't just notice it. And it feels actually quite similar to a Samsung Galaxy S7, just a little bit bigger, because as you can see, it is taller, it is wider, and it is a little bit thicker, I think so. But it feels very much like an S7, just a little bigger. And this is actually one of my complaints, because I would have wished for this device to be a little bit smaller in terms of bezels and overall size, because in my opinion they should have just ditched the whole modularity thing. I don't give a fuck, sorry for that, but I don't give I said it again, about the modularity. I would have wished for them to make the device therefore more compact, because the modules so far don't really do anything that someone would actually want to do, and I'm not sure everyone or anyone actually uses that. But let's get back to the device. The grip here is actually way better than expected, and yes, I don't care at all that this does maybe feel like metal, because for me it does, because it is getting warm like metal and it has a nice grip to it. So if they put some kind of cover to that or some finish, I'm totally fine with that, because it still feels good. The fingerprint reader is quite small, which is my only complaint. Other than that, it works nice, and you can actually turn on the screen without having to push the button. I always thought it would be the case, but you can just tap, and if you want to press it, it's to turn off the screen. Here we have the whole camera stuff that I won't really get into yet. Here we have the headphone jack, IR blaster, which is something that you don't really get on too many phones these days. The microphone, here we have the volume rocker, quite nice feedback, all good here. A little bit high up top. In terms of the placement, here we have the button that I won't press once, which you can see is also not that well made, because it wiggles a little bit. But I won't press that. I won't take this once out. I don't care about it. Sorry. USB Type-C, the speaker that you can definitely block, but I will get into that in a few seconds. The microphone and SD card and SIM card tray. We have a little bit of a curve towards the top and bottom, but enough of that to keep it short. I actually love the in-hand feel. Like I said, it could have been a little bit more compact, and then I would have been fully satisfied, because the ergonomics are actually quite nice. Same as for the display. Let's check that once again here real quick. The one thing that I will have to mention is that you will need a little bit more brightness, because everything under 65% looked a little bit dull to me, but then you have really nice blacks, great whites, a little bit on the colder side, but totally something that I prefer. Colors are a little bit boosted, but still way more accurate and natural than on the S7. Viewing angles are just about okay, but still do a fine job. Maximum brightness is nowhere near the S7, but overall so far I really like the display. Once you crank up the volume or the brightness a little bit more, I actually think so far prefer it over the HTC 10, because it seems a little bit more contrasty and just not as flat as the HTC 10. Now let's check the sound, which is something where I was quite impressed by. Okay, one thing is obvious, you can quite easily block it if you are a right-handed user. Left-handed, it shouldn't be a problem, but the speaker on its own actually sounds really, really good. It's very loud. It's a little bit on the flatter side, a little bit weak in terms of mids and bass, but still okay. And once you actually cup it, it gets way more immersive and still is totally satisfying. Actually didn't expect it to be that good. Headphone jack quality isn't that good, because I don't know, on my headphones I didn't quite get them to properly drive them loud enough, as I would have wanted them to be. Sound itself was though absolutely fine, but I want to get to the main highlight in my opinion, and that is, once I can unlock it with sweaty fingers, it doesn't work that well. That is the performance, because okay, it has to reload. So let's wait for that a second, and then you will see my main highlight here of this device, something I did not expect, because look at that scrolling. This is the only device besides the S7 that has, for me in my opinion, 60% smooth scrolling. This is absolutely killer smooth. You can make fast flicks, and this feels very much like the HTC 10 just on steroids, because the HTC 10 in my opinion wasn't that smooth at all. The S7 is, but not as consistent, because for example the browser here works way nicer, we're way more consistent in terms of performance. The RAM seems fine so far, but it's the scrolling that is really good, and it seems to be performing or outperforming even the S7. It gets really close to that. I can't judge it yet so far, but I like the 60 frames buttery smoothness that I just didn't see on any other flagship besides the S7, where we see a little few odd stutters sometimes, but so far this seems to be the best performer that I've used. Not maybe so much for gaming, because 1440p with the Snapdragon 820 seems to be a little bit too much in my opinion. It can't quite drive that good enough because a lot of slowdowns, but overall still playable, no problems. It heats up a little bit. How much and how much of an issue this will be is something that I will have to see about that. Battery, I can't really judge it, definitely not yet, but I've used it for one cycle so far and I would have gotten maybe 5 hours of screen on time on Wi-Fi only, but without a SIM card, so just take this with a grain of salt. This is not yet anything that says something. About the software, I actually like it because it looks way nicer now, because as you can see here, way more toned down, the colors seem way nicer, but the odd thing is, even though we have a theming engine, it doesn't really do much else than changing the icons, because I couldn't change these colors. A little bit something changed in the notification bar, but that was pretty much it. But in terms of functionality, it's absolutely there. I always liked what we got. It wasn't too much bloat or anything like that, but the main features that I wanted are still here, and it looks way nicer than the previous LG UI. When we get to the camera, selfie game is quite okay, I would say slightly above the S7, which doesn't really mean a lot because I never was impressed with that. Low light capabilities are maybe the next best thing to the S7, because quite enough light gets picked up. It's also quite sharp and doesn't really blur or grain too much, so really good. Once we go outside, I was really happy with the pictures because the autofocus works really nice. It's pretty much seamless. Fast shutter times, almost on an S7 level, if not maybe on the same. And the pictures then turn out really, really nice, super sharp, great color balance, quite natural, really great exposure, sometimes with a little bit of harsh light. It had some trouble, but I got consistent great shots, didn't have any trouble to get that. So fully pleased here with the video qualities. I have to say the only thing I am missing is a 60 frames per second mode in 1080p, but therefore you get 4K if that's good enough for you. The transition in terms of exposure was a little bit harsh, but I had a little bit of bright light today with a few shadows, so I can quite evaluate that. And I also need a little bit more comparisons with the S7 to fully evaluate how good the camera is for pictures and for video, but so far it seems very smooth, great autofocus, very instantly, and just nice and sharp and smooth. So to get this done, and this video is almost 10 minutes once again. In and feel way better than expected and actually quite good, not quite as compact as I would have wished for, but still really nice. Display fully pleasing so far. Can't really judge it too much yet, but so far I don't see a problem. Crank up the brightness a little bit and you should be fine. Speaker absolutely loud enough and sounds very pleasant so far. All good here. Headphone jack quality not that great, but should be still okay. Performance top notch, top 1 or top 2. Absolutely brilliant. Maybe not so much for games, but definitely for day-to-day use. Then the battery life that I can't really judge yet so far, I would say slightly below the HTC 10 and S7. Software gets the job done. Maybe you have to get used to the looks a little bit, but after that it should be fully satisfying. And the camera seems to be definitely a top 3 shooter, because it has one of the fastest shutter times with a great autofocus, and it seems to produce really high-end quality pictures, along with the wide angle lens that we also have. That I will have to take a little bit more look into it, but so far this would have been it. So I really like it so far, definitely way more than expected, because I always said this is like a half level or maybe 1 level below the current flagships, but no. I would actually say so far, just after 1 day, which doesn't have to say too much, I would actually prefer it over the HTC 10. But as I said, this is no review, 24 hours later video, and a few things could change. I could maybe think the battery life is totally atrocious, the display isn't that good, or some things could annoy me, so keep that in mind. Go check in about a week or so if you watch this video later, if the review is out already, and then you will know my full opinion. But so far, I'm actually heavily impressed, and I would say this is one, if not the most underrated phone of 2016 so far. This was my 24 hours later video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you see 2 more. That was completely wrong. And I will be back. And that wasn't any better than the first one. I'm not even sure if I made that in this take, because I've made this bad joke a few times too much today. But I guess you all get where it comes from, because everyone tells me I sound like the Terminator. So come with me if you want to live. And no, I actually think I can't make him good. Bye.